Hey guy, tonight we aren't going to follow a person or a book. We are going to take a walk, a very long and very slow walk around the walls of one of the most ancient and complex cities in the world. We are going to circle the old city of Jerusalem as twilight falls, as the gentle wind whispers through the battlements and carries stories with it. We are going to find out why every gate in this city has not just one, but many names, secret names that whisper of its history. But first, a little reality. In the long and often violent history of this city, you probably wouldn't survive. To live here was to live with the constant threat of siege, of conquest, of the sudden and brutal changing of power. These walls were as much a trap as they were a protection. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like this episode or subscribe to the podcast, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always a pleasure to know where these stories have landed. And now, turn on your fan, dim the lights, and get comfortable. You are standing outside the walls of the old city of Jerusalem as twilight falls. The last light of the day bathes the limestone in a warm, honey gold color, making the ancient stones seem soft and alive. A gentle breeze blows across the hillsides, carrying the cool of the evening and the scent of thyme and dust. From a distance, you can hear the peal of church bells blending with the Muslim call to prayer, a complex symphony of faith. You step forward and place your hand on one of the immense stones of the wall. It is still warm from the day's sun. It feels ancient, as if you are touching time itself. But you know that in the long story of this city, the walls you see are relatively young. This is their mainstream historical fact. These grand ramparts were built in the 16th century by the great Ottoman Sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent. They were not a desperate defense, but a grand statement of power, order, and beauty from a mighty empire at its peak. You look closer at the stones. Most are uniformly cut in the Ottoman style. But one stone looks different. It seems older, bearing the marks of a different kind of chisel. This is a small, secret detail, a quirky tidbit of the walls, the use of spolia. It's a term for repurposed stones, taken from older ruined buildings. The stone you are touching might once have been part of a Roman temple, or a Crusader church, or an even older Jewish fortification. This wall is a Frankenstein's monster of history, built from the rubble of past conquests. Each stone has its own story, its own secret name. As you gaze at the line of the walls snaking over the hills, you know that this is not their original path. Archaeologists still debate the precise course of the even more ancient walls, like those from the time of King David or Nehemiah. The walls you see are just the latest skin on a city that has had many skins. Beneath your feet lie the ghosts of older, forgotten walls, the foundations of lost cities. You begin to think of these walls not as a barrier, but as an embrace. They are the city's stone arms, holding its 4 distinct quarters: Jewish, Muslim, Christian, and Armenian, together in a fragile, beautiful, and complicated hug. The walls are not just to keep the world out. They are to define and contain the world within. And in these stone arms, there are openings, gates, 8 that are still open, and a few more that have been sealed by time and prophecy. You decide to begin a journey. You will walk the circuit of these walls, and you will stop at each gate to listen to its story. You will learn its official name, the name on the maps, and you will try to listen for its secret names, the names whispered by the people who pass through them every day, names that reflect their history, their faith, and their lives. The first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. The golden stone turns to a soft gray in the fading light. The wind whispers around the ancient battlements. Your walk is about to begin. The story is not in a book. It is in the stones themselves. You just have to learn how to listen. You stand before the immense stone walls as the last of the sunlight fades from the sky. Your journey is to visit the gates of this city, the 8 ancient mouths that breathe life in and out of the old city. But before you take a single step toward the first one, you pause. You find yourself thinking about the idea of a gate itself. What is it, truly? In your modern world, a gate is a simple thing. It is a hinge and a latch. It is an opening, a convenience. But here, in the ancient world, a gate is a place of immense power and complex meaning. It is not just a door. It is the city's primary organ of interaction with the world. It is a filter, a membrane, a judge, and a stage. You think first of its most obvious function: control. The great, thick wooden doors, sheathed in iron, the tall towers that flank the entrance, the narrow, angled passageway designed to slow down any potential attacker, the openings above, through which boiling oil or heavy stones could be dropped. The gate is a fortress in miniature, the strongest and most vulnerable point in the city's defenses. And urban historians still debate the precise balance of a gate's function. Was it primarily a military feature, with its social and commercial roles being secondary consequences, or were all its functions equally important in the life of the city? But the gate controls more than just armies. You imagine it during the daytime. It is the city's customs and immigration office. A caravan of camels laden with spices and silks from the east would arrive, waiting patiently outside for the guards to inspect their goods and levy the proper taxes. A traveler from a distant land would be questioned, his purpose for visiting ascertained, before being allowed to enter. The gate is the point of entry, and it has the power to say no. You then picture the gate as a place of commerce. Just inside or just outside its walls would be a bustling, chaotic market. Farmers from the surrounding villages would bring their produce here, selling their grain, their olives, and their cheese to the city dwellers. Merchants would set up their stalls. It is the city's great lung, breathing in the sustenance and the goods of the outside world, and breathing out the crafts and products of the city's artisans. And it is a place of justice. This is a mainstream historical fact that echoes throughout the ancient world. In the cool, shady archway of the gate, the elders of the city would sit on stone benches. Here, they would listen to legal disputes. A farmer accusing his neighbor of moving a boundary stone. Two merchants arguing over a contract. A family dispute over an inheritance. The elders would hear the cases and pass judgment, right here in the open, public space of the gate. To be within the gates was to be within the jurisdiction of the city's law. They were the original gatekeepers, in the most literal sense of the word. The gate is also the city's newspaper and its television. Here, a royal herald would stand to read a new decree from the king. Here, a prophet might stand to deliver a fiery condemnation. Here, travelers would exchange news and gossip from distant lands. If you wanted to know what was happening in the world, you would go and linger at the city gate, and you think about the quirky, almost magical symbolism of the threshold itself. To cross the gate was not a casual act. It was a transition between two worlds, the wild, untamed world outside and the ordered, human world within. Great rituals were performed here. Victorious armies were not supposed to march through in full battle array, as it was a sign of dominance over the city's own spirit. Important visitors were formally greeted at the gate by a delegation from the city. The very ground of the threshold was a sacred liminal space. Finally, you imagine the end of the day, the sound of a horn. The city guards begin to push the great doors shut, their hinges groaning under the immense weight. A heavy wooden or iron bar is dropped into place. The city is sealed. The exchange with the outside world is over for the night. It's a city-wide curfew, enforced with several tons of wood and iron. The city is now a self-contained world, safe and silent, dreaming behind its stone eyelids. You understand now. Each gate you are about to visit is not just a piece of architecture. It is a complex machine for living, a place where law, commerce, news, and defense all converged. To understand the story of a gate is to understand the soul of the city it serves. With this new appreciation, you turn your feet and begin your walk toward the first great opening in the city's stone arms. Your walk begins on the western side of the city, along a stretch of the great wall that faces the setting sun. Ahead, you see the first great break in the stone, an imposing and busy portal. This is the Jaffa Gate. You stand before it, watching the flow of modern life, tourists, merchants, and residents passing through its ancient archway. You decide to listen for its stories, to understand its many names. Its most common name in your time, Jaffa Gate, is a name of arrivals. For centuries, this was the end of the road. This is the mainstream historical fact that defines its character. Christian pilgrims from Europe would land their ships at the ancient port of Jaffa on the Mediterranean coast. They would then make the long, arduous, uphill journey on foot, and this gate would be their first point of entry into the holy city. You can almost feel the ghosts of those pilgrims, the immense wave of relief and awe that must have washed over them as they stood right where you are standing now, their long, dangerous quest finally over. This gate was the finish line. But then you think of its other names, its secret names. In Arabic, it is often called Bab el-Khalil, the Hebron Gate. This name completely reorients you. It is not about the journey from the sea that is ending. It is about the journey to the desert that is beginning. This name points you south, down the long road to the ancient, holy city of Hebron, the place where the great patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are said to be buried. One name looks west to Europe, the other looks south into the heart of the Judean hills, and that Arabic name has another, even more beautiful meaning. El-Khalil is a title of respect for Abraham, meaning the friend of God. So this is also the gate of the friend. And historians still debate the symbolism and the layers of meaning carried in these names. Does the name you choose for this gate define who you are? Are you a European pilgrim arriving from Jaffa? Are you a local merchant heading south to Hebron? Or are you a person of faith entering the gate of the friend of God? A gate with this many names does not have an identity crisis. It has a very long and complicated resume. You look at the structure itself. It is not a simple archway. It is a massive tower with an L-shaped entrance. The path turns a sharp 90 degrees inside the gatehouse. This was a classic defensive feature, designed to stop a cavalry charge and force any attackers into a vulnerable, confined space. Today, its primary military function is to create a bottleneck for tour groups with oversized backpacks. And then you notice something strange. Right next to the ancient, angled gate is a wide, unadorned breach in the wall, a simple gap through which cars and delivery vans now enter the city. This hole in the wall has its own quirky story. It was created in 1898. The German Emperor, Kaiser Wilhelm II, was scheduled to visit Jerusalem, and he wanted to make a grand, triumphal entry on horseback and in his royal carriage. But the historic L-shaped gate was too narrow for his procession. So, in a grand gesture of political hospitality, the Ottoman authorities simply knocked a hole in their own magnificent 400-year-old wall to accommodate him. It is the ultimate 19th century VIP entrance, a permanent scar of political politeness. You choose to walk through the original gate, the path countless pilgrims have walked before you. You step under the heavy stone archway. The light changes instantly. The sounds of the modern city outside are muffled, replaced by the echoing footsteps on the ancient stones. The open space is gone, and you are now in the narrow, winding alleyways of the old city. You have crossed the threshold. You have passed from one world into another. You have passed through the first gate, and you have heard its names. It is a place of arrival, a place of departure, a place named for a friend of God, and a place scarred by the vanity of an emperor. The story of this one gate, you realize, is the story of Jerusalem itself, a story of faith, of commerce, and of the collision between ancient traditions and the demands of power. You stand for a moment, letting the energy of the city wash over you, before turning to continue your long, slow walk along the top of the walls, heading south now, toward the next story, the next gate. You step through the final archway of the Jaffa Gate and find yourself in a small, stone-paved square. The noise and energy of the old city immediately surround you. But you turn back to look at the gate you have just entered, and your attention is drawn to the immense fortress that stands fused to it, looming over the entrance like a silent, powerful guard. Its shadow falls over you. This is the citadel, and it has a story to tell that is much older and much more brutal than the gate itself. You understand the relationship immediately. If the Jaffa Gate is the city's open, welcoming hand, the citadel is its clenched fist. The gate is for pilgrims, merchants, and travelers. The citadel is for soldiers. It is the gate's older, bigger, and much more serious brother, and its job has always been to make sure that anyone who comes through the gate with bad intentions has a very, very bad day. It is the permanent military hardware to the gate's public-facing software. You know this place by its most famous name, the Tower of David. But as you look at it, you are aware of a quirky and profound historical irony. The fortress has almost nothing to do with the biblical King David. He never built it, never lived in it, never commanded his armies from its walls. The name is a romantic invention, given to the site by Byzantine Christians thousands of years after David's death, because they believed this hill was his palace. And the most iconic part of the structure, the tall, slender minaret that so many people today identify as the Tower of David, is in fact a 17th century Ottoman addition. It's a fantastic brand name, a classic case of very successful historical rebranding, but a misnomer nonetheless. What you are actually looking at is a historical lasagna, a complex structure with layers from nearly every major period of the city's life, all baked on top of each other. This is the mainstream historical fact of the citadel. You let your eyes drift down to the base of the walls. You can see them clearly. Massive, perfectly cut, cream-colored blocks of stone fitted together with incredible precision. These are Herodian stones, laid by the master builders of Herod the Great around the time of Jesus. They formed the foundation of his magnificent royal palace and fortress. Above them, you can see smaller, rougher stones, set in a different style. These are the work of Roman legionaries who took over the fortress after they destroyed the city. Then, higher still, you can distinguish the marks of Crusader construction, followed by repairs and additions made by the Mamluks who drove them out, all of it capped by the sturdy, functional battlements of the Ottomans, the same men who built the walls you are walking on. The entire history of Jerusalem's conquests is written in the masonry of this single building, and it is a complex and confusing text to read. You try to follow a single line of stones, and this is where you encounter the puzzle that archaeologists and historians still debate. Was this particular wall part of a Crusader chapel or a Mamluk barracks? Do these Herodian foundations represent a defensive tower or the wall of a lavish palace courtyard? The fortress holds its secrets closely. Each layer poses a new question, a new debate about function and form, a puzzle of stone and time. You lean against the cool wall of the gate, looking up at the imposing fortress. You think of the long line of rulers who have stood on these ramparts, looking out over the city they controlled. Roman procurators like Pontius Pilate, conquering Crusader kings, powerful Mamluk sultans and Ottoman governors. For thousands of years, whoever controlled this fortress controlled Jerusalem. It has always been the seat of foreign military power, the unblinking eye that watched over the city's turbulent life. The sun has set completely now. As the sky turns a deep indigo, powerful floodlights switch on, bathing the old stones of the citadel in a warm, dramatic glow. It seems to grow in size, a silent, golden giant guarding the city through the night. Standing here, in the space between the welcoming gate and the intimidating fortress, you feel the central, defining tension of Jerusalem's story. It is a city of pilgrims, but also of soldiers, a city of prayer, but also of power, a city of faith, but one that has always lived in the shadow of the sword. You turn your back on the citadel's imposing glare and begin your walk, heading south along the top of the great Ottoman wall. The sounds of the city are on your left, the darkness of the valley is on your right, and the next gate is waiting for you in the distance. You continue your journey along the top of the Great Wall, walking south from the imposing presence of the citadel. To your right, the lights of modern West Jerusalem glitter in the valley below. To your left, the ancient, quiet stone rooftops of the Armenian quarter are bathed in the soft glow of the moon. The wind is gentle up here on the ramparts. Ahead, you see the next break in the wall, the next story waiting to be told. You descend a set of stone steps and find yourself standing before Zion Gate. At first glance, it seems a smaller, humbler sibling to the grand Jaffa Gate. It is another imposing 16th century Ottoman tower, its archway dark and deep. But as you step closer, you see that this gate wears a history that is raw, modern, and violent. The stones around the archway are savaged. They are pockmarked and scarred with hundreds of holes, chips, and gouges. This is not the slow erosion of time. These are the wounds of war. You have found the gate's most visible secret name, a name written not in ancient texts, but in a brutal pattern of lead and steel. These are the bullet holes and shrapnel scars from the desperate fighting of 1948, the Arab-Israeli War, known to Israelis as the War of Independence. This gate was the front line in the battle for the Jewish quarter. This is the mainstream historical fact that defines the gate's modern character. You are no longer looking at medieval history. You are looking at the raw wounds of the 20th century, carved directly into the ancient stone. It's a form of historical braille, written by machine guns. You can almost hear the echoes of that desperate time in the quiet of the night. You recall the stories you have read, the quirky and tragic tidbit of history that happened right here. In May of 1948, Jewish commandos of the Palmach, in a fierce nighttime assault, managed to briefly break through this very gate to try and relieve the besieged residents of the Jewish quarter. For a few fleeting hours, there was a glimmer of hope. But they could not hold the position. They were pushed back, and the gate fell once more. And for the next 19 years, until 1967, this gate was sealed shut. A dead end on an international armistice line, a symbol of a divided city. The strategic choices made during that battle are still a source of pain and contention. Military historians still debate the decisions of that night. Was the failure to hold Zion Gate a fatal tactical error, or was the position, in the face of overwhelming odds, simply indefensible? The stones themselves offer no answer, only the silent, pockmarked evidence of the struggle. You think about the gate's other names, its more peaceful, ancient names. It is Zion Gate because it opens out towards Mount Zion, which lies just outside the walls, the traditional location of King David's tomb. And in Arabic, it is also named for David, Bab el-Nabi Daoud, the gate of the prophet David. It is a rare point of agreement. Both names, in both languages, connect this place to the memory of the same great poet king, a figure of reverence for both Judaism and Islam. It is called Zion Gate, but for a crucial part of its modern life, it was a locked door keeping people from Zion. Unlike the Jaffa Gate, which hums with a commercial energy even at night, Zion Gate is quiet. It feels somber. It is less a gateway of commerce and more a gateway of memory. It leads you out toward the sacred sites of Mount Zion, the cenacle, the traditional room of the Last Supper, the Abbey of the Dormition, where the Virgin Mary is said to have fallen into eternal sleep, and the tomb of King David himself. You reach out a hand and place your fingers into one of the deeper bullet holes. The stone is cool and rough. You are touching a wound. You are feeling the physical scar of a modern conflict on a medieval wall. It is a powerful and jarring reminder that the history of this city is not a closed book. It is a story that is still being written, a story where the 16th century and the 20th century can collide on a single stone. You pull your hand away. You have understood this gate. Its secret name is not just Zion or David. Its secret name is struggle. Its secret name is memory. Its secret name is resilience. It is a gate that does not hide its painful past, but wears it openly on its face. You turn and continue your walk east, along the southern wall, the quiet weight of the last century now settled in your mind alongside the ancient echoes. You walk east from the scarred stone of Zion Gate, following the great wall as it curves around the southern edge of the city. The path along the ramparts begins to descend, leading you toward the lowest point of the old city, down towards the edge of the Kidron Valley. Ahead, you see the next opening, but this one is different. It is not a grand, imposing tower flanked by battlements. It is a small, humble, almost utilitarian-looking hole in the wall. You have arrived at Sha'ar HaAshpot, the Dung Gate. It is, you think, quite possibly the least glamorous and most unfortunate name for a city gate anywhere in the world. There is no poetry here, no heroism. Its name is not a celebration of a great king or a holy place. Its name is a job description. This is the city's back door, the service entrance, the place where you take out the trash. You stand before it and let the history of its name settle in your mind. This is the mainstream historical fact that defines it. For centuries, in the ancient world and beyond, this small gate served a vital and unpleasant function. It was the designated exit point for the city's refuse. You imagine a constant, slow procession of carts, laden with garbage, broken pottery, and animal waste, rumbling through this very archway to be dumped and burned in the valley below. You can almost smell the ghost of that ancient filth on the night air, and you are very glad that this is a practice no longer in use. You wonder about its true age. A dung gate is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Nehemiah, as one of the gates he repaired when he rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile. And archaeologists and historians still debate whether the gate you see before you is in the exact same location as Nehemiah's ancient gate. The walls have been destroyed and rebuilt so many times over the millennia that a direct, unbroken succession is almost impossible to prove. but you know that it stands in the same general area, and it has always served the same functional purpose, facing the same valley. The name, at least, has survived. Like all the gates, however, this one has other secret names that tell a different story. You think of its other identities. It is sometimes called the Silwan Gate, for the ancient Arab village that clings to the hillside just across the valley. And in the Middle Ages, it was known as the Mughrabi Gate, the Gate of the Moors, named for a community of North African immigrants who settled in the quarter just inside the walls. These names are not about trash. They are about community, about geography, about the people who have made their lives in the shadow of this humble opening. You look through the simple archway of the gate. It was widened by the Jordanians in the 1950s to allow cars to pass through, which is why it lacks the ancient Ottoman stonework of the others. And through this humble opening, you see why this small, unfortunately named gate is now one of the most important and heavily trafficked in all of Jerusalem. Your view looks directly onto the massive, open plaza and the giant, iconic, ancient stones of the Western Wall, the holiest site of prayer in all of Judaism. You are struck by the profound irony. The gate that was once the exit point for all the city's impurity is now the most direct entrance to one of its most sacred places. The path of the garbage carts is now the path of pilgrims. The service entrance has become a grand portal of faith. It's a classic underdog story. You have learned something new about the nature of this city. A gate's importance is not always measured by its size or the grandeur of its name. The Dung Gate, for all its humble history and unpleasant associations, is a testament to transformation. It is a lesson in humility, a quiet reminder that the most sacred places can be, and often are, reached by passing through the most lowly of entrances. You decide not to pass through it tonight. You will simply observe it from the wall above before continuing your journey east towards the sealed secrets of the Golden Gate. You walk on from the humble Dung Gate, moving east along the base of the city wall. The ground opens up into a vast, excavated archaeological park. And there, stretching out before you in the moonlight, is a wide, monumental sea of stone. The southern steps. This is not a gate in the wall. This was a gateway to heaven. You sit down on one of the wide, worn stones, and you understand that you are in one of the most historically significant places in the entire city. This great stone staircase, unearthed by archaeologists in the 20th century, was the main public entrance to the Temple Mount during the time of the Second Temple. This was the grand central station for the millions of pilgrims who came to Jerusalem for the great festivals. Everyone, from the poorest farmer in Galilee to a visitor from Rome, would have walked up these very steps to enter the sacred courts of the temple. As you sit on the cool stone, you notice a quirky and wonderfully thoughtful detail in their construction. The steps are not uniform. One tread might be narrow, the next one broad. The one after that might be narrow again. There is no consistent rhythm, no easy cadence for climbing. You realize this was done by design. The unevenness of the steps forces you to slow down. You cannot rush up this staircase. You must watch your feet, pay attention, and approach the holy place with a deliberate, mindful, and reverent pace. It is an architectural feature designed to change your state of mind. You close your eyes and you try to listen. You try to imagine the scene as it was 2,000 years ago. The empty, silent space around you would have been a teeming, noisy, chaotic mass of humanity. You can almost hear the babble of a dozen languages: Aramaic, Greek, Latin. You can almost smell the dust kicked up by thousands of feet and the pungent odor of the animals being brought for sacrifice. You are sitting on stones that have been worn smooth by the hopes, the prayers, the anxieties, and the simple, tired footsteps of millions of people. This was the original high-traffic area. And you know, with a certainty that makes the hair on your arms stand up, that he walked here. While historians and New Testament scholars may debate many details of his life, there is little doubt that Jesus of Nazareth, as an observant Jew who traveled to Jerusalem for the festivals, would have used this main public entrance. The very stone you are sitting on was likely once touched by his feet. You look to the side of the great staircase, and you can see the excavated remains of dozens of small stone pools. These are the mikvahs, the ritual baths. Before any pilgrim could ascend these stairs, they had to come here first. They had to immerse themselves in the water to become ritually clean before approaching the holy presence of God in the temple. It was a required spiritual shower before walking through heaven's gate. And you can imagine him not just walking here, but teaching here. The wide, open steps form a natural amphitheater. It would have been the perfect place for an itinerant rabbi to stop, gather a crowd of fellow pilgrims, and deliver a sermon. Many of his famous arguments with the temple priests may have happened right here, at the very foot of their sacred space. You open your eyes again. The imagined crowd vanishes. The space is vast, silent, and empty, bathed in the cool, white light of the moon. All the noise and the life are gone. All that remains are the stones. But the stones remember. In their worn surfaces and their uneven rhythm, they hold the echo of every footstep, every prayer, every argument, every hope. You have found a different kind of gateway on your journey tonight. Not an opening in the wall, but a great sweeping staircase, a gateway in time that connects you directly to the bustling, fervent world of the Second Temple. You feel the immense, quiet weight of all those millions of anonymous lives, all those pilgrims who, like you, made a long journey to sit in this one sacred spot. You stand up, place your hand on the cool, ancient stone one last time, and continue your walk along the southern wall, the quiet ghosts of the pilgrims walking with you. You walk on from the southern steps, turning the great corner of the city wall. You are now walking north, along the eastern flank of the old city. To your left is the sacred enclosure of the Temple Mount, known to Muslims as the Haram al-Sharif. To your right, the ground drops away steeply into the Kidron Valley, and across the valley, the Mount of Olives rises, covered in its ancient gnarled trees. The air here feels different. It feels older, quieter, and charged with an immense unspoken significance. Midway along this wall, you see it. It is a structure of breathtaking beauty and profound mystery. Two magnificent vaulted arches, their stonework finer and more ancient than the Ottoman walls around them, are set into the wall. But they are not an entrance. They are sealed shut with solid, rough stones. You have arrived at the most famous and most important gate in Jerusalem that cannot be used. This is the Golden Gate. Its entire purpose, its entire identity, is to be closed. You stand before it in the quiet of the night, and you understand that this gate's importance comes not from any human history of commerce or justice, but from a divine history of prophecy. It is a gateway that is central to the past and the future of three great religions. You think first of the Jewish tradition. In ancient times, this was the Eastern Gate, the Shushan Gate, the main entrance to the temple. It is the gate through which the Shekinah, the glorious, visible presence of God, was said to enter the Holy of Holies. And Jewish prophecy holds that at the end of days, the Messiah will approach Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, and he will enter the city through this very gate to redeem Israel and bring peace to the world. For this reason, it is also called the Gate of Mercy. Then you think of the Christian story, which builds upon the Jewish one. You imagine Jesus, a few days before his death, descending the Mount of Olives and entering the city in triumph. This is the gate he would have passed through on what is now called Palm Sunday, as crowds laid cloaks and palm branches in his path. And for Christians, too, the story is not over. They also believe that at his second coming, Christ will return to the Mount of Olives, and he will enter the city through this gate to judge the living and the dead. Finally, you think of the Muslim tradition. In Arabic, the gate is called Bab al-Rahmah, the Gate of Mercy, the same name as in the Jewish tradition. For Muslims, it is from the top of this wall that a great bridge will extend across the valley on the Day of Judgment, a bridge as narrow as a hair and as sharp as a sword, which all souls must attempt to cross. You look at the ground directly in front of the sealed arches. It is filled with tombs, a vast and ancient Muslim cemetery that presses right up against the base of the wall. This is a quirky and fascinating detail, a piece of theological strategy written in stone and bone. According to tradition, the cemetery was deliberately placed here for a specific reason. The Jewish Messiah is to be preceded by the prophet Elijah, who is of the priestly Kohen line. A Jewish Kohen is forbidden from entering a cemetery, lest he become ritually impure. The graves, therefore, form a silent, spiritual barrier, designed to block the Messiah's path. You look at the stones that seal the gate. This is the mainstream historical fact of its current state. The arches were blocked up in the year 1541 by the same man who built the walls, Suleiman the Magnificent, and historians and theologians still debate his exact reasons. Was he simply bolstering the city's defenses against an attack from the east? Or was he, as a powerful Muslim ruler, making a profound political and theological statement? Was he sealing the gate to publicly refute the messianic claims of the Jews and Christians, a way of saying, "No Messiah, other than the one I believe in, will enter Jerusalem on my watch"? You sit on the ground opposite the gate, in the midst of the silent cemetery. This one sealed doorway is the focal point of so many competing and powerful hopes. It is the ultimate theological traffic jam, a gate with 3 different mutually exclusive destinies, all waiting to happen at the same time. The silence here is unlike the silence anywhere else in the city. It is not the silence of peace, nor the silence of neglect. It is the heavy, charged, and patient silence of waiting. It is the silence of a story whose final, explosive chapter has not yet been written. You stand up and continue your walk north, leaving the gate to its eternal, silent vigil, a paradox of a door that must remain closed to retain its ultimate importance. You continue your walk north along the eastern wall, the silent, sealed arches of the Golden Gate receding behind you. The ground beside you is still a sea of graves, a silent testament to the belief in a final judgment that will happen in this valley. Ahead, you see the next opening, the only functioning gate on this entire, long stretch of the eastern wall. You have arrived at the Lion's Gate. You stand before it and look up at the feature that gives the gate its most common name. Flanking the pointed archway are 4 carved stone reliefs. They are heraldic beasts, 2 on each side, their bodies in profile, their heads turned to face you. They are meant to be lions, symbols of power and royalty. To your eye, they look a bit more like slender panthers or leopards, their features weathered by nearly 500 years of sun and wind. They are not the most ferocious-looking lions you have ever seen. They look more like slightly annoyed house cats, but they get the point across. These carvings are a mainstream historical fact, placed here by the builder, Suleiman the Magnificent. But the quirky story behind them is a local legend. The legend says that Suleiman's father, the previous sultan, had a dream in which he was about to be devoured by 2 lions as a divine punishment for his plans to tax the holy city too heavily. or perhaps even to destroy it. In his terror, he vowed that if his life was spared, he would honor the city and the lions. Suleiman, fulfilling his father's vow, rebuilt the city's walls and placed the images of the 4 lions here as a permanent tribute, a story of how a terrible nightmare led to an act of architectural grace. But this gate, like all the others, has secret names, and the name you use says more about you than about the gate itself. For Christians around the world, this is not the Lion's Gate. This is St. Stephen's Gate. You stand in the archway and look out into the Kidron Valley. Christian tradition, dating back to the Byzantine era, holds that somewhere out there, just outside this gate, St. Stephen, the first Christian martyr, was dragged from the city and stoned to death for blasphemy. While the precise location of his martyrdom is a matter of tradition, not settled history, the story has imbued this gate with a powerful and somber Christian identity. For many pilgrims, this gate marks the beginning of the Via Dolorosa, the sorrowful path that follows Christ's final journey through the city. For Muslims, the gate holds other names still. Sometimes it is called Bab al-Ghor, the gate of the Jordan Valley, for the simple reason that the road from here leads east, down into the Great Valley. And sometimes it is called Bab Siti Mariam, the gate of My Lady Mary. This is because a cherished Muslim and Christian tradition places the tomb of the Virgin Mary in a small church in the valley just below. For those who use this name, the gate is a portal to a place of deep reverence for the mother of the prophet Jesus. And like Zion Gate, this gate also has a modern military history. You can almost feel the echoes of the Six-Day War in 1967. You picture the Israeli paratroopers, after fierce fighting, breaking through this very gate to capture the Temple Mount and the Western Wall, unifying the city under Jewish control for the first time in 2 millennia. History, it seems, has a flair for dramatic irony. The gate where Christians remember their first martyr being cast out is the same gate where Jewish soldiers triumphantly re-entered. You stand in the quiet of the archway, a place of immense historical resonance. This gate is not one thing. It is a gate built by a Muslim sultan, named for a dream of lions. It is remembered by Christians for the death of their first saint. It is revered for its proximity to the tomb of Mary, and it is famous as the entry point for a modern conquest. You have learned that the secret name of this gate depends entirely on the story you choose to tell and the direction you are facing. Are you looking out, remembering a martyrdom? Or are you looking in, remembering a military victory? The same ancient stones contain all of these stories, holding them together in a quiet, complicated embrace. You turn from the gate to continue your walk west, along the northern wall of the city, leaving the lions to silently guard their collection of secrets. You walk west from the Lion's Gate, following the path along the top of the city's northern wall. The energy of the city shifts below you. You are now walking above the bustling residential heart of the Muslim quarter. You soon come to the next opening, a smaller and quieter gate than the ones you have seen so far. It feels less like a grand ceremonial entrance and more like a neighborhood portal used by the people who live and work here every day. This is Herod's Gate. As you stand before it, you are immediately confronted with a familiar Jerusalem puzzle, a famous name that is based on a historical mistake. Just like the Tower of David, the name Herod's Gate is a misnomer, a piece of faulty branding that has stuck for centuries. The name was given to this gate by Christian pilgrims during the Crusader period. They believed that a large church and house just inside the gate was the palace of Herod Antipas, the first-century ruler of Galilee, who plays a role in the trial of Jesus. They were wrong, but the name caught on, and for much of the Western world, it is Herod's Gate to this day. Historical accuracy, you reflect, was not always the top priority for a medieval pilgrim on a tight schedule. You look for the gate's other names, its secret, local identities, and you find a much more beautiful one. In Arabic, the gate is often called Bab al-Zahira. This can be translated in a few ways, but the most common is the Flower Gate. For a long time, the origin of this name was a mystery. But you look closely at the stone structure above the archway, and there it is, a single carved, stylized flower, a stone rosette, its petals weathered by time, but its shape still clear and elegant. This is the quirky and delightful power of a small detail. A long-forgotten Ottoman stonemason, in a simple moment of decorative flourish, gave this gate its most enduring and poetic local name. And then there is a third name, one that echoes an even more ancient past. The gate is sometimes referred to as the Sheep Gate. This name is a historical puzzle. The Bible, in the book of Nehemiah, mentions a sheep gate located on the northern side of the city. It was the gate through which the flocks of sheep, destined for sacrifice at the temple, were brought into Jerusalem. For centuries, this has led to a question that historians and archaeologists still debate. Is this gate, Herod's Gate, the true original sheep gate from over 2,000 years ago? The answer is almost certainly no. The city walls have been destroyed and rebuilt too many times for such a direct lineage. It is far more likely that the name became attached to this gate for a much more practical reason. For many centuries, a large livestock market was held in the fields just outside this section of the wall. It was the city's main market for sheep and goats. The gate, therefore, became known as the Sheep Gate by association. The market and the sheep are long gone now, replaced by houses and bus stations, but the name lingers on, a ghost of the area's old economy. You stand before this one, humble opening, and try to hold its three identities in your mind at once. It is Herod's Gate, a name based on a fiction. It is the Flower Gate, a name based on a single, small, beautiful truth. And it is the Sheep Gate, a name based on a memory of a commerce that has vanished. Each name tells a story, but none of them tell the whole story. You peer through the archway. It opens directly into a busy, vibrant neighborhood. You can hear the sounds of children playing football in a narrow street. You can smell the scent of baking bread from a nearby shop. It feels less like a great historical monument and more like the living, breathing front door to a community. You have learned that a gate does not always get the name it deserves. Sometimes its name is a mistake. Sometimes it is a piece of poetry. And sometimes it is an echo of a life that has long since disappeared. This gate, with its jumble of false, beautiful, and ghostly names, is a perfect symbol of the city's own layered, confusing, and often contradictory memory. You turn from the scent of baking bread and continue your walk west, along the wall, toward the grandest gate of them all. You walk on from the quiet, residential feel of Herod's Gate, continuing west along the city's northern wall. You round a slight bend, and then you see it. It is, without question, the most magnificent and imposing of all Jerusalem's gates. This is not a humble side entrance or a simple opening. This is a grand, ceremonial, and powerful statement of architecture and defense. This is the Damascus Gate. This is the gate as a masterpiece. You stand before it, dwarfed by its scale. Two great octagonal towers flank a massive, soaring, pointed arch. The stonework is intricate, decorated with flourishes and topped with defensive machicolations, openings through which defenders could pour down oil or rocks. This is not a gate built merely for function. It was built by Suleiman the Magnificent to impress, to project the power and the glory of the Ottoman Empire. This is the city's grand front door, the architectural equivalent of a peacock displaying its full, brilliant tail. You think first of its English name, which is a simple matter of geography. This gate opens directly onto the Great Northern Road, the ancient highway that, if you were to follow it for 200 kilometers, would lead you to the legendary ancient city of Damascus. For centuries upon centuries, this was Jerusalem's primary connection to the great empires and cultures of the north. It was the main artery for commerce, for armies, and for ideas. But as you look at the base of the magnificent Ottoman structure, you see something else. The modern road has been lowered, and archaeologists have excavated what lies beneath. You can see the broad, rounded tops of 3 arches, the remains of an even older, even grander gate. This is the Roman Gate, built by the Emperor Hadrian in the 2nd century when he rebuilt Jerusalem as a Roman colony called Aelia Capitolina. The Ottomans, In a testament to the enduring strategic importance of this spot, simply built their new, magnificent gate directly on top of the old Roman one. It is the ultimate historical layering, and this Roman gate holds the secret to the Damascus Gate's most common local name. In Arabic, it is known almost universally as Bab al-Amud, the Gate of the Pillar. This is a quirky and fascinating ghost of a name. It refers to a colossal, triumphal pillar that stood for centuries in the grand public plaza just inside the Roman gate. This pillar was the 0 milestone of the province of Judea. All distances in the land were measured from this one spot. The pillar itself has been gone for well over 1,000 years, vanished into the mists of history. But its memory was so powerful that it continues to give the gate its name to this day. You are looking at a gate named for something that no living person has ever seen. You try to imagine that lost Roman plaza, a grand open space paved with stone, with the great pillar at its heart. Archaeologists still debate the exact appearance and function of this space. Was the pillar a monument to the emperor's glory? Was it simply a geographical marker? The name, Bab al-Amud, is the most powerful clue to this magnificent public square that now lies buried beneath the bustling shops of the old city. Like all the gates, it has other names too, each one telling a different story of a different road. It is sometimes called the Nablus Gate, or in Hebrew, the Shechem Gate, because the same northern road also leads to those ancient and important cities. Like a person with a very long title, the gate's many names all point to its immense importance as the great northern portal of Jerusalem. You stand before this gate, a stunning fusion of two great empires, Ottoman and Roman. It is a gate whose modern name looks to a city in the distance, but whose ancient name remembers a pillar that is long gone. It is a place of immense history, and even now, at night, it hums with a vibrant energy. This is the main entrance to the Muslim quarter, and life spills out from its archway. You can hear the sounds of cafes and smell the scent of baking bread. You feel drawn in, and so you walk across the small plaza, past the excavated Roman ruins, and through the grand, soaring archway of the Damascus Gate. You step through the magnificent archway of the Damascus Gate, leaving the relative quiet of the world outside the walls behind you. The moment you cross the threshold, you are plunged into another world entirely. The cool night air is replaced by a warm, close atmosphere, thick with 1,000 years of life. The quiet is shattered by a gentle, persistent, and overwhelming hum of human activity. You have stepped directly into the labyrinth of the souk, the great marketplace of the old city. This is the living, breathing heart that is served by the great artery of the Damascus Gate. The concept of personal space is immediately and completely suspended. You are swept up in a slow-moving river of people, a current of humanity that pulls you deep into the narrow, vaulted alleyways. The stone walls of the souk muffle the sounds from the outside, creating an intimate, echoing world of its own. Your senses are overwhelmed, first by the sounds. There is the gentle, rhythmic tap-tap-tap of a metal worker hammering a design onto a brass tray. There is the friendly, sing-song call of a vendor selling fresh mint tea from a large, ornate canister on his back. You hear the clatter of backgammon pieces and the low murmur of men's voices from a small, smoky coffee shop tucked into a corner. Children laugh as they chase a cat through the legs of the crowd. It is a symphony of daily life, a soundscape that has remained largely unchanged for centuries. Then there are the smells. The warm, almost overwhelmingly sweet scent of baking bread and pastries from a neighborhood oven. A few steps further, and that is replaced by the sharp, earthy, and exotic smell of a spice merchant's stall. Pyramids of brilliant yellow turmeric, deep red sumac, and pale green cumin are piled high, their combined aromas creating a perfume that is the very essence of the East. This mixes with the sweet scent of cheap perfume, the rich dark aroma of coffee being ground with cardamom, and the ever-present smell of roasting meats and frying falafel. You let yourself get lost in the maze. The alleyways twist and turn with no apparent logic. It feels like a labyrinth designed by a committee that was not on speaking terms. One moment you are in a wide, vaulted passage lined with shops selling colorful textiles and lanterns. The next you turn a corner and find yourself in a narrow, dark alley, barely wide enough for one person to pass. As you walk down what seems to be the main, central artery of the market, you look down at the worn, polished flagstones beneath your feet. Then you look at the wall of a shop beside you, and you see it. Sticking out from the modern plaster is the round base of a massive ancient column. You look up and see another one further on. This is the quirky and profound secret of the souk. You realize you are walking on the ghost of the Cardo Maximus, the main colonnaded street of the Roman city of Aelia Capitolina. The bustling medieval market has been built directly on top of the ruins of the Grand Roman Boulevard. The layers of history are not just below you. They are all around you, incorporated into the very walls of the shops. You marvel at the vibrant, seemingly chaotic efficiency of it all. And you think of how sociologists and urban planners still debate this very thing. Is a place like this an outdated, inefficient relic of the past? Or does it represent a highly sophisticated and deeply resilient form of human-scaled commerce and community, a form of social organization that the clean, sterile, and impersonal shopping malls of the modern world have completely lost? Finally, after what feels like a lifetime of wandering, you see a small patch of starry sky up ahead. You turn down a final, narrow alleyway and suddenly emerge into a quiet, residential courtyard. The noise, the smells, and the chaos of the souk are gone, as if a door has been closed behind you. You are back in the quiet, sleeping part of the city. You have learned that a gate like Damascus Gate is more than just an entrance in a wall. It is a portal into a different state of being. You have passed through the city's heart, felt its pulse, and breathed its air. The murmur of the souk, you realize, is the city's true secret name, a constant whisper of life, of commerce, and of community that has echoed through these stone passageways for 1,000 years and more. You take a deep breath of the cool, quiet air, the scent of spices still clinging to your clothes, and you continue your walk. You continue your walk along the northern ramparts, moving west from the magnificent Damascus Gate. The vibrant echoes of the souk fade behind you, replaced by the quieter, more residential atmosphere of the Christian quarter on your left. Ahead, you see another break in the great stone wall, but this one feels different. It lacks the imposing, fortified tower that marks all the other gates you have seen. It is not a fortress. It is simply an archway, an elegant but simple opening cut directly through the 16th century wall. You have arrived at the youngest sibling of Jerusalem's gates. Compared to its grand, ancient, and battle-scarred brothers like Jaffa Gate and Damascus Gate, this one is modest, unassuming, and distinctly modern. Its name reflects this. In English and Hebrew, it is known simply as the New Gate. And for once, the name is perfectly, literally accurate. Its story is not one of ancient battles, biblical prophecies, or medieval legends. Its story is a much quieter one, a story of 19th century diplomacy and modern convenience. This is the mainstream historical fact of its existence. The New Gate was breached through the wall in the year 1889. It is a mere baby, barely a century old when you first encounter its story. You picture the city as it was in the late 1800s. The world was changing. Jerusalem, after centuries of being a quiet provincial town, was beginning to expand. New neighborhoods were being built outside the ancient walls to accommodate a growing population and the increasing influx of European pilgrims and institutions. The area just inside this part of the wall, in the Christian quarter, was home to the French consulate, a large French hospital, and several monasteries and schools. The problem was one of simple logistics. To get from these new French institutions to the new neighborhoods being built just outside, one had to take a long, circuitous walk all the way around to either the Damascus Gate or the Jaffa Gate. The French consul, tired of this inconvenient commute, petitioned the rulers of the city, the Ottoman authorities, for a new, more direct entrance to be created right here. It was a gate born not of war, but of the simple desire for a shorter walk home. After much diplomatic negotiation, the Ottoman Sultan, Abdul Hamid II gave his permission. His engineers carefully breached the magnificent wall of his great ancestor, Suleiman, and created this simple, elegant archway. In his honor, the gate was given an official, quirky, and now mostly forgotten Arabic name, Bab al-Sultan Abdul Hamid. But the common name, the one used by everyone, was simply the New Gate. You stand before this opening and contemplate its deeper meaning, and you touch upon a question that historians of urban development still debate. What was the true impact of this act? Was the creation of the New Gate a positive and necessary step, allowing the ancient, crowded city to breathe and connect with its growing modern suburbs? Or did it mark the beginning of the end for the old city as a self-contained, protected entity? Was this the moment the Great Walls stopped being a real, functional boundary and started their long transformation into a historical monument, a beautiful and symbolic decoration around a city that had outgrown them? You look through the archway. The view leads directly into the clean, quiet, stone-paved streets of the Christian Quarter. You can see the high walls of the St. Saviour's Monastery and the steeples of nearby churches. Unlike the Damascus Gate, which serves as a grand portal to the entire city, this gate feels like a private entrance for a specific community. You have learned on your journey tonight that gates are born for many reasons. Some are born of conquest and defense, some of prophecy and faith, and some of mistakes and memory. And this one, the New Gate, was born of the quiet, creeping, and inexorable demands of modernity. Its secret name is convenience. It is a quiet symbol of the moment the ancient sealed city began to open itself up, to become integrated into the wider, changing world that was growing so rapidly outside its stone embrace. You have finished your tour of the northern wall. You now turn south to complete the circuit, walking back towards your starting point at Jaffa Gate. Your journey on the ground is complete. You have walked the full circuit of the old city, from Jaffa Gate in the west, south to Zion and the Dung Gate, east to the sealed Golden Gate and the Lion's Gate, and then west again along the northern wall past Herod's Gate, Damascus Gate, and the New Gate. You have learned the stories and the secret names of each portal. Now, for a final perspective, you decide to walk the walls themselves. Near the Jaffa Gate, you find a narrow, steep stone staircase and begin to climb. You emerge from the dark stairwell into the cool, open air of the evening, and you are standing on top of the ramparts, the walkway that has been the patrol route for the city's defenders for nearly 500 years. This is the mainstream historical fact that allows for this final, magical part of your journey. Large sections of the Ottoman walls are open for you to walk on. The footing up here is uneven, the great stones worn smooth and dipped by the sandals of centuries of Ottoman sentries. There are no handrails. It is a walk with a magnificent view and a complete disregard for modern safety standards. The city, which on the ground felt like a dense and confusing labyrinth, now lays itself out before you like a living map. From this vantage point, you can see how it all fits together. You look down into the winding alleys of the Armenian Quarter, then across to the great dome of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Christian Quarter. You can see the rooftops of the Jewish Quarter, and beyond them, the magnificent golden dome of the rock shining on the Temple Mount. You see the secret life of the city, a hidden rooftop garden, a small courtyard where children are playing, and laundry lines strung like prayer flags between ancient stone houses. The sun is setting. This is the golden hour in Jerusalem, and it is a spectacle of light. The sun, low in the western sky, strikes the limestone buildings, and the entire city seems to catch fire, glowing in brilliant shades of gold, pink, and orange. The shadows of the towers and minarets stretch long across the courtyards and plazas. The whole city seems to take a deep, collective breath, pausing at the magical moment between day and night. And as the sun finally dips below the horizon, the city's evening soundtrack begins. It starts with the distant, solemn tolling of church bells from the Christian Quarter, a deep, resonant peal that echoes across the rooftops. Then, a moment later, the beautiful, haunting voice of the muezzin erupts from the minarets of the Haram al-Sharif, the call to prayer cascading over the city. The two sounds, one of Christian bells and one of Muslim prayer, do not compete. They intertwine, harmonizing in the cool evening air to create a melody that is uniquely, complicatedly, and beautifully Jerusalem. As you stand and listen, your hands resting on a warm stone crenellation, you think about your elevated perspective. Urban sociologists still debate the effect of this. From up here, the city looks so peaceful, so unified, a perfect mosaic of faith and life. Does this beautiful panoramic illusion mask the real, complex, and often contentious realities of life on the ground? Or does it perhaps offer a glimpse of a deeper truth, a vision of the city's incredible, resilient ability to contain all of these different worlds at once? You walk on, passing a small, built-in stone niche in the wall, a quirky, lonely-looking guard post. You can almost imagine an Ottoman soldier standing in this very spot 400 years ago on a cold winter night, pulling his cloak tight around him and listening to these same blended sounds, watching over this same sleeping city. You have completed your final circuit. You have seen the city from the ground up, and now from the top down. The last light has faded from the sky, and the stars are brilliant in the clear, dark air. The city below is now a sea of scattered, glittering lights. You have learned that to even begin to understand this place, you must see it from every angle. You must listen to all of its voices, and you must learn all of its many, many secret names. You find the stairs and descend back into the narrow streets, your journey at its end, the music of the city still ringing in your ears. You have come full circle. Your long, quiet walk is over, and you find yourself standing once again in the small square just inside the Jaffa Gate. It is late now. The shops are shuttered, the tour groups are gone, and the city's residents are in their homes. A deep and peaceful quiet has settled over the ancient stones. The only sound is the ever-present Jerusalem wind, whispering through the narrow alleys. You have visited the great gates of the city. You have learned their official names, and you have listened for their secret ones, the names of history, of community, of prophecy, of pain. You feel as if you have begun to understand the city's complex soul. But as you stand there, on the worn flagstones, you realize that the deepest secrets are not in the gates you can see. They are in the gates you cannot see. You realize that the city you have been walking through is just the latest draft of a very old story. It is the top layer of a great historical cake. This is the final, mainstream historical fact of Jerusalem. The modern ground level of the old city is many feet higher than it was in the past. Beneath your feet, beneath the foundations of the Ottoman and Mamluk and Crusader buildings, lies another city, a buried city, the Roman city of Aelia Capitolina, and deeper still, the Jewish city of the Second Temple period. You think back to the Damascus Gate. You remember seeing the top of the grand Roman archway that lies excavated beneath the current Ottoman structure. That Roman gate, with its own history, its own guards, its own stories, is now a silent basement to the bustling gate above. Its voice is completely silenced by tons of earth and the passage of centuries. You think of the southern wall and the quirky, mysterious story of Robinson's Arch. For almost 2,000 years, all anyone could see was the stump of a massive arch sticking out of the western wall, a puzzle that no one could solve. It was only with modern archaeology that the secret was revealed. It was once part of a monumental staircase that led up to the Temple Mount, spanning a busy, shop-lined street that is now buried 20 feet below the current ground level. A great public entryway, a gate to the temple, was hidden in plain sight for 2 millennia, its true nature completely forgotten. The city's greatest secrets are not hidden in locked rooms. They are simply buried under the mundane reality of the present day. Every time a new foundation is dug for a house or a shop, the builders risk stumbling upon another gate to another, long-forgotten Jerusalem. And you wonder, in a question that archaeologists and historians of memory still debate, how does a city remember? Is its memory only in the books and the stories passed down through generations? Or does the city itself have a kind of physical, unconscious memory, Do the modern streets and alleys, which often follow the invisible lines of buried walls and ancient roads, remember the path of a city that no longer exists? You now understand the final, deepest meaning of the secret names. The true secret is that this city is a collection of ghosts. Every gate you have seen is haunted by the ghost of an older gate that stood in its place. The Ottoman Jaffa Gate stands on the memory of a Crusader gate, which stands on the memory of a Byzantine gate, which stands on the memory of a Roman one. Each has a name that is now lost, a voice that is now silent. The wind picks up, swirling dust in the empty square. You have found the ultimate secret. The story of Jerusalem is a story of entrances and exits, of walls built and walls destroyed, of gates opened and gates sealed. And the most profound gates are the ones that are no longer there. The invisible portals through which millions of souls have passed, whose names and stories are now lost to all but the stones themselves. You look down at the stones beneath your feet, and you feel the immense, silent weight of all those buried cities, all those forgotten gates. And now, your own walk through the quiet city has come to its end. The last gate has been visited. The last secret name has been whispered by the wind. The stones of the walls, warm from a sun that set long ago, are now cool to the touch. The sounds of the day, the merchants, the pilgrims, the bells, the prayers, have all faded away into a deep and profound stillness, leaving only the gentle, sighing sound of the night air moving through the ancient olive trees. The city is sleeping, and all of its stories, all of its layers of history, are resting safely under a blanket of stars. You can let the memory of the journey dissolve. Let the feeling of the stones and the sound of the wind become a gentle, distant hum. The walk is over. The gates are closed for the night. And now, you too can rest.